The following clip is from a new Audio University mini course on recording acoustic guitar. I had the opportunity to record this course with Professor Gabe Herman during a live seminar with his students at the University of Hartford's Hart School. If this clip resonates with you and you're serious about unlocking the secrets to professional sounding acoustic guitar recordings, plus diving into our full library of mixing and recording courses, become an Audio University member with the link below. Hey, we're here at the University of Hartford at the Hart School. Professor Gabe Herman and his senior class. I appreciate you guys having us. Let's do some demos where we learn about acoustic guitar and how to mic it.
Yeah, it's a complicated subject, isn't it?
Yeah, now how do you approach it?
Well, so there are a lot of things you want to think about with an acoustic guitar, but I think we start with the instrument, right? And one of the things that we discuss is the design of the instrument itself. So if there's one thing you can learn that's going to really improve your miking game, it's understanding what it is you're actually miking. So one part of the conversation is about where does the sound come out of the guitar. Now we know we have a sound, it's called a sound hole, but that's not actually where the sound comes out, right? It divides into different sections. And one of the things that my students and I talk about is their understanding of acoustics, right? And you are all taking classes in acoustics, so you're understanding vibrational acoustics and atmospheric acoustics in the air. So we know that the top of the guitar vibrates when the string is plucked, right? And that air is moving both inside the guitar and outside of the guitar, and that turns the entire surface of the guitar into the resonator, right? That's where the sound comes from. In a way, it's like its speaker. So we also know that there are different frequencies that come from different parts of the guitar's activation. So broadband frequencies, or most frequencies, including low frequencies, come from the body of the guitar, because this is essentially a room inside of a room. So when this top undulates, it causes the sides and the backs to also vibrate, and it creates resonances inside the guitar, and the whole thing kind of radiates those frequencies out. But when we strum the guitar, we also get high frequency content because we're plucking or strumming the guitar or finger picking. Similarly, down on the neck side here, this is where we don't have a body attached to the instrument. It's kind of floating out here. And this solid section right here, if we were to just flag this off and just listen to what it sounds like to play this part, there's a lot of high frequency stuff that pops off of the neck. So we do get a fair amount of high frequency content the further up the neck you go. So one of the things that we were discussing in a previous conversation, right, was this idea that if you get too close to any one of these sounds, you lose sight of the instrument as a whole. You're kind of getting a close-up picture of one part of the sound of the guitar, which can be good if you want to accentuate that sound or that part of the sound. But if you want to back up a little bit, you start to get the pieces coming together a little bit. We talked about the Fraunhofer effect of different elements of the guitar summing together acoustically to create a more even picture of the instrument.
Yeah, and I wonder if we can demonstrate that a little bit later on by sticking a microphone there. And I think what we'll find is it's a very unnatural sound. If you're used to listening to guitar in a room,
that's right.
Rarely are you.
That's
doing
right.
That. Right.
Yeah, and we have to think about the fact that when we have speakers that we're listening to in a room and playback, those speakers are telegraphing what we do with the microphones. So if we have really close microphones here, the speakers in our room are going to be playing those close sounds back to us. And so the perspective we get through the speaker playing is one of being really close. And there are times when I want to get that close to a guitar and really lean over and listen and be intimate, but that's generally not the way we experience the instrument. One thing you can mess around with, and this is true for all instruments, is measure the entire length of the guitar or the instrument, right? And then if you're that far away from it, that gives time for all the elements of the actual physical body of the instrument to sum together and give a more complete picture. The trick is that as we do that, and as we move back in the room to experience the instrument, more like we do when we're sitting here listening and enjoying it, we're also getting the room to come back into the sound as well. So we have the direct sound of the instrument, but then we also have the room that the body of the instrument's in, giving us information. And so part of microphone placement is figuring out the correct ratio of direct sound of the instrument to room sound, right, that the instrument's giving back from the room.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're in first off, a very nice sounding room here at your school, and also we have the ability to even further modify the acoustic character of it. So,
Right.
Speaking of acoustic treatment, it really does make a big difference when recording acoustic guitar. Or anything, really. Check out the link below to download the Acoustic Panel Blueprint, which will walk you step by step through the process of building your own acoustic panels. You can download that free guide at audiouniversityonline.com/acoustic panel blueprint. You'd say as a starting point, you would use the length of the instrument in this case. So what is that, about 3.5, 4 feet?
We have a tape measure in the other room. We can measure it. But I would say this is, about 3.5 feet.
Okay.
About 3.5 feet. So, it's easy to go crazy with lots of different types of microphones. Better, I think, to start with 1 or 2 and then add as you need to get different sounds. Now, this guitar happens to be a very high, a brighter size style guitar, so it's going to create a bright sound when we play it. So we also have to think about that in our microphone choice, right? If we have a bright instrument and we put a bright microphone, one that is also bright in its characteristics on top of it, we've really doubled down on bright. So this guitar can sound really tinny and thin just by combining too close to high frequency areas, right? But also the bright mic itself makes it seem ultra bright. That being said, close microphones giving us focus on bright, medium, dark tones based on the proximity to the areas of the instrument can be blended together to create an artificial sense of the guitar, which may be appropriate. It's important that I say, I think that we all understand that there's times for this and there's times for that. You know, we don't always want to prescribe just one way of doing things.
Right. One of your students earlier in our discussion said that it's the vibe of the song.
The vibe of the song, right.
Yeah. The other instruments that we're trying to blend in with, if that's the case. In this case, we're only focusing on solo acoustic guitar, but that is not always the case.
That's not always the case, and a good player will know how to modify the way they play the instrument and engage with the instrument to fit within the other instruments in the ensemble too. But we want to make sure that we're capturing those subtle changes that they're putting out. So one thing an analogy I use for this idea of being too close, if you were to look at if I were to show you a slide of an apple skin under a microscope and asked you, what are you looking at? It might not be obvious to you immediately what that is, right? You have to zoom out to something that we're used to seeing to realize, oh, that's an apple skin. And you're that close, you just see the little cell walls and stuff. And that's kind of what it's like when you just put a mic on one spot of the guitar. You really hear like a hyper-focused version of that, but that's not what we necessarily would call the guitar as a whole. But that being said, once we pull back maybe 3.5 feet and get a room tone that blends the acoustic environment in with the instrument, we might find that that's deficient in one area. And then maybe it makes sense to blend in a small amount of these hyper-focused perspectives to balance out, even out the guitar tone.
For instant access to the full recording acoustic guitar course, use the links in the show notes below the video. And in the next video that's on your screen now, I'm sharing some of my favorite tips for recording electric guitar. I'll see you there.